Everyone, welcome back to Warhammer Station. I'm Colin, and this video is basically a recap of the game, my first 10th edition game that I played yesterday. It was, oh man, there was a lot to it. It was a lot of fun. This is my army, as you can see. There's some really cool stuff to it. I'll go into it here in just a second. If you watch my previous video, I went over uh, what my army was, what some tactics were, and this obviously is going to be how this army performed. So as you can see, 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls. Now, I took them with skull hurlers, so that's how they're modeled. That's how they were better in the past. I'm going to figure out some way to modify those to have a skull hurler on them. But, I think after this battle report, you see it kind of doesn't matter much. Maybe it's better to have the Gatling cannon. Angron is the main character and warlord. And then 4 squads of jackals. I had a proxy, some cultists, and a spawn model as the 4th unit because I don't have all the models yet. But by far, the jackals were the MVP of the game. So there's a lot to this list, and again, if you'll recall, I was banking on these Lords of Skulls with their toughness 13 and just a lot of wounds, and they seemingly have a bunch of damage output with the Skull Hurler and the Gore Storm cannon. It's a decent AP, 3 damage weapons, enough to ensure that Marines die pretty easy, or whatever vehicle you're shooting at. And it seems on paper like it's going to be a good idea, but it's kind of not, and I'll go into why. My opponent is a good friend of mine. We played for many years, and he played his Space Marines. I don't play Space Marines enough to know. I can't tell you how competitive it was. But of course, it has a lot of the strongest stuff that Space Marines list. And I apologize, I don't know all the names of this. Like the Phobos squad here, or these other Phobos units, I'm not sure. But Stern Guard, Thunderfire Cannon for the movement decrease, Terminators with Power Fist all around, and the missile launcher. Desolators, I think a character ended up being attached to those. Terminator Captain and Hellblasters, which what you're seeing in so much stuff. And Lieutenant, I think, said I need to be better about my Space Marines. I don't remember exactly what's what. And the Assassin was to modify. He took that to modify the stratagems, to make a stratagem cost more. But he ended up not using that ability, and because it didn't matter in this game, and the Stern Guard ended up going in the drop pod. I only have a few pictures in this. I should have taken better pictures, and I think I do a good job explaining it, but I'll take better pictures in the future. And these tanks, these are the ones with they have a gun on top. They might have some other little guns on the sides here, but the main thing was this double shot big damage gun. And I don't know, I think they did good. Like I said, they look good on paper till you realize stuff's in cover and you have to save and stuff, right? So this was deployment. He deployed this is objective markers. So the objective markers really hurt me a lot this game. I couldn't traverse across those. You can't, as per the rules, you can't end your movement on top of an objective marker. So with these big tanks and the objective markers placed where there are, I had trouble moving my stuff around. They're just too big to go over the stuff and cutting off whole lanes of fire, right? So that's going to be a big deal in this edition if this rule remains in place, is to be mindful of where your objective markers are placed. Because if a unit, if a big based unit can't fit through a gap that would make it in its move on top of this objective marker, it can't move. It's going to stop assaults. It's going to stop all kinds of things. And so now more than ever, objective placement is a major, major deal. So, this one, the drop pod ended up right next to here. It was real hard to make a charge there. In my deployment zone, I placed this right in between these two buildings, or just outside of it, just inside of it. I don't remember exactly. It had, I couldn't end a move there, and it was stuck. Crazy stuff. This was the Space Marine deployment. He castled in behind this ruin, did not take shots. The Desolators were there to ascend to the top and get all their shots. Of course, the plasma guys there were able to hide and progress as I approach. I'm World Eaters. I have to get there. I have to come across. So they're going to be able to pump out of those ruins and take their shots. The Thunderfire, I guess you call this twin castles or corner deployments. This tank was in the back, and the Thunderfire and I think 2 other units were in the back there. Of course, the Terminators and the Captain in reserve. Here's the rest of the deployment, and then these other guys infiltrated. And there's scouts back here holding that objective with the Thunderfire, like I said. On my side, of course, I deployed as best I could. These things are too big. I'm still going to take some shots, but having that cover is a big deal. And Angron's in the back of this one here. So it's a tough deployment. I had range. Of course, I know that drop pod's coming in. All my jackals are on the line as best they can to deny that drop pod and the stern guard from getting in and getting a good double tap range on my stuff. So I felt like I was doing good here. That drop pod did come in. You can see where it came in right here, and it got shots off. It didn't do very much. The big tanks didn't do very much. I had some good saves, but this squad of jackals marched up from the center using their sticky objectives, and so this sticky objective thing, it lets you rack up points and forces the enemy to come across the board where and you're able to press whatever you're trying to do. So and I want to talk a lot more about that, but this picture holds a lot of stuff, a lot of information in it, and was my first big mistake of the game. I had pulled a card that said, if I'm wholly within the center, I can get 5 points or something like that. I forget the name of it. But I didn't attack the drop pod, which I could have easily killed. I was wanting to kill the stern guard. And I found out the hard way that Khorne Lord of Skulls, I attacked him, right? I tried to kill this big tank because it can do the most damage to these Lords of Skulls. And the 3 tanks shooting their big skull hurler cannon could not kill the tank. So I mean, it's the skull hurler is 2d6 shots, strength 14, AP -3, 3 damage per shot, right? And so that sounds really good until you roll really low on 2d6, and then when you pitch your dice out there, you only hit. You miss a couple of hits, you miss a wound, and then all of a sudden, he's rolling 3 saves against whatever attacks were coming across, and he saves 1 or 2 of those. That's not enough to kill a tank. It's really not. And the damage just isn't there on that skull hurler, and it's the same with the Gore Storm cannon. It's D6 plus 3. You end up with 4, 5, 6, 7 shots. You roll. You miss a hit or 2. You miss a wound, and then they take a couple of the saves. At the end of the day, they're losing 1 or 2 or 3 guys at the most because the damage is going through. And so the damage output on the shooting of what can arguably be the best shooting of the Lord of Skulls just isn't there. And why this makes a difference is you have to, as a player, you have to be able to kill an enemy unit to reduce the effectiveness of their army. You know, if it's an infantry squad, it's still like these desolators up here. They can lose 1 or 2 guys and still be effective. You need to kill 5 or 6 in a go, and their effectiveness just goes way, way down. The tank has to die. There's no two ways about it. And so here's the other thing. You know, the Khorne Lord of Skulls has 2 attack profiles, a big, high 8 damage attack profile, and that's like a character killer or a tank killer or something like that. And then it has a sweep profile with a AP -2, 2 damage, and strength 8. So it's going to be still wounded Marines on a 2, right? Well, it's 15 dice. So that sounds like really, really good on paper, right? Until, again, you roll 3s to hit. You're missing 3 or 4 hits. You roll 2s to wound. There's 2 or 3 wounds that you miss in there. And then they're still getting a 5-up save against that stuff. So at the end of the day, I mean, you can see it right here. Between the Jackals, I think they might have killed 1 guy, and the Khorne Lord of Skulls, I only killed 5 Stern Guard. And I don't know if my dice just weren't in it. You know, I felt like they were okay. But it's kind of a sad deal putting the full brunt of a Khorne Lord of Skulls into a 10 Marine squad. And, you know, I think these guys received some shots. I don't think they had the full deal in there. But they weren't able to, you can't take out a 10-man squad. And so you can reduce the effectiveness here, and that was the goal, but not totally. You know, I'm pretty sure these guys wiped out the Jackals at the end of the day. And above all, 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls could not tank out 1 tank. And it might be down to the dice of that 2d6 shots, and between all the saves and all that cover and all that stuff, is always a factor, but there has to be a way to overcome that, to reduce the effectiveness of your opponent, and the Lord of Skulls were not able to do it. And I got, on these 2 in the frame, I got clean shots. The third one is on the off over here, shooting long range. You know, they're 60 inches, and couldn't kill the tank. It was a shame. This is, I think, the 3rd turn. Another thing that you got to be worried about is that's going to be a huge adjustment from 9th to 10th is the characters that can fly. You know, I think it's still going to be good, like if you're jumping from the ground up to these containers, right? But, you know, we're so used to hiding. You know, I play demons as well. I'm so used to hiding the big, scary flying things behind a piece of terrain so that they're not taking shots. Well, now they got to go around the terrain. So before, where they were able to jump up and be in combat, they're not doing that. So if you're playing on these tables with these big, tall, stacked terrains, it's not going to happen. The second thing that's a big deal here is heroic intervention. And I need to double check this rule. I trust my really good friend to get it right. But I rolled a 12-inch. So the Hail Blasters right here. I should have taken the picture a lot sooner here. The Hail Blasters, and of course these guys had to die. They jumped out and just nuked a knot. You know, they're really, really points efficient for what they're capable of doing. Between, you know, attaching characters and getting the bolter discipline and getting the 5+ on their criticals, and just putting out all of these shots on whatever they're wanting to shoot. I mean, even high toughness stuff between Oath of Moment, getting full rerolls, between characters being added, getting proc and criticals on a 5+. That unit is going to kill whatever it shoots at. And Hail Blasters are such a good thing. I mean, they walk out of a piece of terrain and they just nuke stuff. And then when they die on a 3+, they still get to shoot. And take note, they can take a plasma pistol. So if they're in close combat and die, they get to shoot steel, right? And this is a brand new rules interaction that I'm not 100% with on knowledgeable on, so I'd appreciate some clarification. But it doesn't specify they have to shoot what killed them, so they could potentially reach out and shoot whatever they're wanting to shoot at it with their long range guns. Maybe at a -1. It's a brand new rules interaction that's real quirky. And so the other thing, like I said, is this heroic intervention. With my other squad of jackals here, I rolled supremely high and got within heroic intervention range. I think it was 6 inches. And of course, he had the Terminator captain that let them use the bonus stratagem, so where he could do it. So both the Terminators and the Stern Guard were able to get into combat with these jackals and fight before Angron and the jackals could. So they were able to, I mean, of course, Angron mulched the plasma guys, and without the reroll benefits, Angron didn't have the Oath of Moment attached to him, so he was able to survive anything that those. And then my friend rolled a bunch of 2s on there being able to shoot. So Angron really didn't take much, or he shot the cultists, right? But the Terminators obviously just mulched the cultists. And even basic Space Marines, I think they have 3 attacks or something now. So they're still doing, even basic Space Marines who are primarily shooty focused are doing a number on toughness 3 models. It's really cool. But yeah, being caught off guard by that heroic intervention was a big deal. If I had been smarter, obviously, I would have been able to wipe out both this apothecary and the lieutenant, and would have been better late game, right? So at this point, it ended up being really, I'm doing pretty decent at points. We both are at this point, and all the cards are like kill stuff on an objective, yada yada. It's a really fun, pulling the cards out is really fun. There's a couple I didn't get that, at the end of the game it was like deploy a teleport homer, and I only had an Angron left, so it's like, yeah, right, I don't intend to deploy a teleport homer and attack and leave Angron out to do nothing, right? It doesn't seem like something he would do. Let's see, this was the result of another card. There's one of the cards that you can pull that has, you pick, your opponent picks an objective in no man's land, and you have to kill the models on it and take the objective. I think both the cards at the same time I had to do that. And of course, I assaulted everything with both of my units and piling in, and between that happening, and I might have done it with the Lord of Skulls. I don't remember in a subsequent turn. I didn't take a picture with that. I was able to complete both of those objectives and get 10 points out of it. It's really powerful having sticky objectives and having these jackals move up and still be effective. And they're not going to kill a bunch of Marines, just a 10-man unit. I mean, they hit on 4s. I think if they're supported by Angron, or if there's anything else that gave them reroll somehow, they might benefit from that. But I think Angron's the only one who can do it. Other than that, I think you need a 20-man. I kind of want to experiment with 20-man jackals supported by that Demon Prince. Another thing that you can't sleep on is the Blessings of Khorne, where you roll up Feel No Pain. And these guys subsequently get a 5-up Feel No Pain. And this isn't like old editions where if you get double your toughness, the model just dies and you don't get a Feel No Pain. You get it no matter what. So I think having these giant blobs of jackals who can, I think they're the star unit of this index, being able to stick an objective and move up and just be really, really effective. And I mean, but they require support, or they require a 20-man blob, because going up and just attacking these 5 Space Marines, I wasn't able to really get any of them down. And they just hitting on 4s and strength 4 on the charge. Just doesn't cut it. And maybe 2 of these Dishonors with their -1, 2 damage weapons can get some work done, but not one of them. Not one of them. The assassins are really tough too. This was towards the end of the game, and this is where I ended up. This is the fateful decision that cost me the game, right? So I had the choice of, and I had a bloodlust device. So Angron, he could either go over and kill the Terminators, or he could kill these 2 characters who are low on health. And this is where I pulled the 2 cards to attack this objective that was over here and gain points. It was the right gambit, not gambit from the card I pulled, but gambit from in a sense of strategy wise. Because obviously, it'd be, just a first glance at this picture, it'd be jump over and have Angron take all this stuff. This is turn 3 or something when this is happening. And so these guys, this Khorne Lord of Skulls to kill these 2 things, but I took the Lord of Skulls over here to get these points. What I should have done was have Angron kill these 2 guys, because he could have easily jumped over, assaulted both of them, easily mulched them, and then still tank the shots from the Terminators, I think, right? But I didn't do that. I ended up, like I said, the bloodlust got me. Ended up going over to mulch the Terminators, which Angron did, and my opponent was able to move the Apothecary into the center of the board and gain points that way, and move this one onto the objective closer to my deployment zone that was sticky from my jackals and deny me those points. In the end, I had jumped Angron over and killed the character. I misread in one of my stratagems. I thought I could stick an objective just by spending a point, and then I jumped over, killed this guy who was potentially going to contest that objective, and I thought I could sticky these objectives. I can't. A unit has to die, and then it stickies those objectives for a command point. But regardless, I got my revenge off of that guy taking my objective from me. Angron killed the Terminators, and then the last turn, he came over and killed this Apothecary. So I mean, Angron does really well. He's got a 2-up save. He's got cover that just enhances that. But obviously he's susceptible to big guns and lots of big damage. So yeah, obviously Angron does really well. He's a lot of fun to play. He's a very cool looking model on the tabletop. But I want to switch over to the Blessings of Khorne page, and I'll tell you how that worked for me. So luckily enough, I was able to remember this every turn. In past editions, I haven't been able to remember this, and remember. So I've had trouble remembering some of my special rules, but I put this sheet down. I think I want to make a little display that has some cool stuff with this, like so you can put your dice in there, and it reminds you what blessing you have. Obviously at the start I did the Rage-Filled Invigoration to get that move up there, right? It really helped with the jackals moving up to where they needed to be. And of course, Feel No Pain. It's Space Marine shooting, and so I wanted the best survivability out of my every unit that I had, and because that Oath of Moment with tons of plasma coming in, with Desolators coming in, with just big tank guns coming in, you got to have as much durability as you can. And I mean, it did really well on the jackals, who ended up with a 5-up Feel No Pain, and it did just okay on everything else. I never had a chance. Every turn, I guess one thing I should say about the Blessings of Khorne is I got what I wanted on every opportunity. Maybe I was just really lucky, but anything that I could want, I needed. I turned on the fight, but it only some jackals. I thought he might try and assault something with like Terminators, or Angron with the Terminators or something like that, or maybe the Khorne Lord of Skulls. But I mean, he didn't have to. He had plenty of shooting to be able to do that. I turned this on once. This one's once you're moving where you need to be, the movement doesn't matter, right? But it's a really good combo. I think we all know that by now, is being able to get the move and get the charge. Maybe pop that one strat to re-roll and get lethal hits and sustain hits. But I got what I wanted every time. I never needed a banner re-roll. And of course, Angron lived to the very end, and I never needed to bring him back to life. Of course, I did roll naturally once, but there was never an instance with the Khorne Lord of Skulls that I had to modify a dice roll one way or another. Again, I think I just got really lucky, but it was very powerful having these stuff just every round. I mean, because I'd feel no pain anytime I wanted. I had my advance and charge. I think I had sustained hits once, but I just didn't roll enough sixes for that to matter. I didn't roll enough sixes, for lethal hits. I mean, if you roll 10 dice, you're not going to get enough lethal hits. I mean, they're still getting their armor saves against it. It's not that big a deal. Where I think the sustained hits and lethal hits is really going to matter is when you get big blobs and rolling just tons of dice and stuff. And the only thing that can really do that is big blobs of jackals. I've got a plan for that in the next iteration of my World Leaders list. We're going to see how that goes. But yeah, it's really fun. So I ended up losing the game. What is it? 72 by 2 points, 70 to 7. I was 70 points or 69 points, and he was 71. Yeah, he was 71. And it was my game to lose if I had made that better decision of jumping Angron back over and killing those two characters. As you saw, it would have been a lot better. Space Marine shooting is the real deal. That Oath of Moment is, I mean, basically they pick a unit and it dies. I think the high toughness of the Lord of Skulls did some okay stuff by, it takes them a turn and a half to kill that stuff, to kill those things, instead of, or a unit and a half or whatever. But the Hellblasters, the plasma guys, were easily able to do 20-something wounds. And so, I mean, they're going to be a force. The Stern Guard didn't do much against those things. But if you're running infantry, it's just going to be that much more punishing. It gives me pause to run a giant blob of cultists because of jackals, because they'll pick that as the Oath of Moment, and I can't pass enough. Even if I have a Demon Prince there, the Demon Prince will be singled out first. He'll be gone just at the first availability, and the jackals will just get wiped. It won't even be a thing without that 4+ invul. So, for World Eaters, I definitely in a conundrum spot. I'm really thinking about adding in some armigers. I think the ones that hit on 2s, or not armigers, war dogs. I'm thinking about adding those. I really like Angron and what he does. Of course, I really should play more games with this list, but against Space Marine shooting, and it's a combination of the Space Marine shooting, taking these things out, and they're just not being that effective on the battlefield for their points. Too swingy of shots, too swingy on that 2d6 shots. And then 15 attacks can't kill a 10-man blob of Space Marines. It can't do it. It can reduce their effectiveness by a lot, but when they can fall back and negate that -1 to hit thing, that shooting vehicles in combat is just not. I mean, the flip side though is the tank shock stratagem. The Khorne Lord of Skulls really, really benefits from that. So I actually forgot it a couple times. I should have used it against the Stern Guard. I mean, because the way that stratagem works is you roll as many dice as the highest strength. So I rolled 15 of dice and I hit the 6 wound cap. It's on a 5+ is a mortal wound. I hit that wound cap. You can only do 6. And it was, I used it to kill the assassin when it charged in. It murdered that assassin, right? And so if I'd have used that against the Stern Guard and hit the drop pod and did some, I think you can do better. So if you're taking the Lord of Skulls, you have to use that tank shock stratagem at every opportunity. You have to do it. Other than that, I found a really hard time figuring out what to use my stratagem points for. Because, like, I mean, it was easy to kill stuff in the fight phase, but like battle shock test against Space Marines, okay. I mean, there's not enough downside. I mean, they just choose not to fall back, or they'll spend a stratagem to pass if they absolutely have to, and they're going to fail that leadership test so rarely. It's just not. Again, with this one, I never had a chance to use it in a sense because, like, the stuff that was fighting was didn't have enough attacks to switch to lethal hits and sustained hits, or were just going to murder stuff anyway between the Lord of Skulls and Angron. For the Skull Throne, you can add 1 to wound. Hey, this would be great if you were shooting stuff and could wound stuff on 2s, but this is only in the fight phase. And for this list, that didn't matter that much because, again, I had enough strength to do whatever I wanted. Khorne cares not spending 2 for this. Again, it's in the fight phase. This doesn't do anything for you in the shooting phase where you need this stuff the most and is going to protect you from these huge 2 damage shots, right? Blood authoring. Your unit has to die. I use this wrong. And so, I mean, you got sticky objectives. Maybe if there's one that you've taken with your jackals or something else. I think this one's going to be really good. And of course, apoplectic frenzy is going to be really good in those combos. Angron, if you want to use it on him, if you get the movement blessing, he's moving 16, and then he's out to 22. If you have the advance and charge blessing, he's going to get to where he wants to go. I mean, he really is, and he's just going to get in there and do some damage. I think that's a fun tactic. But I also want to use this with a unit of 8 pound. I think that'd be fun. So, gosh, what else can I say? I think I covered everything. Objective placement special. Oath of Moment is a force to be reckoned with. They're going to kill whatever they point at. The Lord of Skulls, their damage output just isn't there, except if you factor in tank shock. So you really have to manage that stuff and manage those Lords of Skulls in combination of where those objectives are placed. But again, it's the same thing like with the Knights list. Your effectiveness just goes down and down. If one of these things die, and the Space Marines have no problem killing these things. You can get lucky with your saves, I guess, but I don't want to bank my win on a luck, right? Angron tears stuff up, and I think hordes of jackals are the way to go. I want to experiment with some lists. I really want to stick with World Eaters, but again, it's really easy to fall into a trap of, with the heroic interventions and how Fight First works and all these different elements. Close combat armies are going to have to up their game. This is close combat, and being effective with close combat armies is the advanced way to play this game. Shooting armies, it's just point and click. I think that's what we'll mostly see in the big tournaments. I think The lists out there are Imperial Knights with some other stuff. And we're going to see how this goes. I'm having a lot of fun. The game was an immense amount of fun, and I really love playing World Eaters. I really do. Going across the table and hitting your opponent with whatever is to me the pinnacle of the game. I want to put some 8-bound in my next list. I think I have Lord and Makadas, big old huge blobs of jackals that sticky objectives. Man, it's really fun. It really is. But yeah, so that's the after action. I really appreciate you watching this. Please engage. This is, you need to hit yourself to this boat. It's a rising tide that we're all gonna be part of. I hope we can develop something good out of this. I forgot to bring these yesterday, and it only mattered once when one of my units fell to battle shock. But I'm working on other products. I got big ones. I've got little ones. And the links for all that is in the description. Check out the Instagram page. Check out the Discord. Again, I appreciate y'all watching so much, and I hope you get something out of this. This is a fun deal. Thank you so much.